What is up, world? Welcome to the first lesson of a few free lessons I will be doing on how to transcribe drums. So, some of you don't know what transcribing is, never heard of it, or you've heard of it and you're not quite sure. So, what I mean by transcribe, and this goes for drums or guitar or the spoken word or whatever, but transcription is when you take something that is audio and you write it down on paper and notate it on paper. So if you were to just transcribe what I'm saying right now, you would listen to a recording of me talking and then write out the words I am saying. So for drums, similarly, what you're going to do is if you hear a drum solo, a drum groove, whatever that you like, that you want to figure out and play for yourself, a lot of people do that by ear. But I think it is also great to learn the skill of how to hear something and then notate it on paper. And this is valuable because, one, we can only remember so much stuff, right? Whether you're learning a bunch of music for a gig or you're learning an entire drum solo of your favorite drummer, it's going to be hard to remember all of that stuff. If it's a 4-minute drum solo, remembering 4 minutes of exactly what someone else played is very difficult. Whereas reading it, if you can learn how to read, will make that easier. And then the same for learning a bunch of music. If you have a gig coming up and you need to learn 50 songs, it's going to be really hard to remember all 50 drum parts and which sections happen where and what exactly where the hi-hat open, what the kick drum pattern, there's so much to drum, so many, even though country music, pop music, rock music, worship music, all of that stuff is pretty simple to play, and it's all very similar. However, it's really hard to exactly play note for note what another drummer did if you're learning 50 songs, 20 songs, So transcribing can be not just for drum solos and drum fills, but just to learn music in a more practical way that relies less on your brain and less on your brain as far as the memory is concerned and more on, you being able to read stuff and more quickly get to the parts without having to force yourself to lock yourself in a room. If I have 20 songs to learn, if I listen to each once and write a chart for it with the stuff written out, I never have to listen to those songs again. And I don't know many people that can listen to 20 songs once and remember the entire 20 songs just by memory without writing anything down, right? So, that's a little bit about transcription and the importance of it. And just for all of you who don't know who I am Tim Buell. I am a professional musician, professional drummer living in Nashville. And as far as transcription goes, I've spent a lot of my life touring and doing sessions and teaching. But as far as transcribing drums goes, I have done this for private clients who, reach out to me on my website and say, hey, I really like this drum solo. Can you transcribe it? I've done that for several years, and I've transcribed parts that I like for myself. In college, I started transcribing drummers that I really liked. But lately, in the last couple of years, the last 5 years or so, I have worked with companies like 180 Drums, Drummer World, Stevens Drum Shed, Vic Firth, and a great drummer, Ash Sohn. I've worked with all of those people transcribing drum parts for them. So I want to talk to you today about where do you start transcribing, right? Some of you don't know how to read music. Some of you don't know, you didn't know until a second ago what transcribing is. And some of you know all of that, but you're like, where do I start? I get so overwhelmed when I try to sit down and do this. So my first piece of advice is start small. Whether you can read music or not, when I started transcribing drums, I honestly couldn't read music that well. I knew the basics, but I couldn't read music that well. And I started by just transcribing one fill at a time. And that fill might have taken me, 2 hours to transcribe. You're talking about 1 bar of music, 4 beats, and it might have taken me 2 hours. It took forever. And just to recap, so I started transcribing drums in college, so that would have been like almost 8 years ago or so. And when I first started transcribing drums, I always used this program Finale, which is a computer program that notates drums. You don't have to. You can write it on, staff paper, which we'll get to. But some of the first transcriptions I did looked a little bit like this. They don't look bad, but they don't look good. And these are pretty inaccurate, right? Pretty sloppy. Again, it's not terrible, but this is just a compilation of fills that I saw. Again, they're not terrible, but they're not great. They look really jumbled. They look cluttered. And again, they're not actually that accurate. If you sit down and you were to hear some of this stuff played, not that accurate. Like this fill up here, Never Again, this fill right here. So that is a Calvin Rogers fill that actually isn't 16th note triplets at all. It's 32nd notes. But this is where I started, okay? And some of these fills are 1 bar long, 2 bars long. This fill is 2 bars long with a little pickup. That probably took me an hour to transcribe when I first started. So I say all that to encourage you. I didn't start out just like, man, this is so easy. I've worked for a long time to build up the skills to transcribe, to be able to fuse, because really what you're doing with transcribing is you're increasing your ability to relate what you hear to what it looks like on paper. It's the same with speaking the English language, right? We all, when we're babies, start to learn by mimicking what language is by, your mom says mom, and then eventually you say mom back to her, or what have you. So you don't actually know how that looks on paper, though. When you go to school, you have a little bit of language built up, but that's how you learn how to read and write, whatever. So it's the same with drums. Just because I learned all by ear when I first started out, and it was difficult, and it was really difficult to transition from learning all by ear to starting to write stuff on paper, because my playing was 4 years ahead of my reading. And it took all the way up through, it took the first probably 10 years of my playing for me to catch up from learning all by ear to, 10 years is a long time. So when I say that, this is where I started and you have to go slow, and like it says here, start small and take your time, I really mean it. It took 5 years for my playing and my reading to begin to catch up to each other, and it's only really now, 16 years into my drumming life, that I feel really confident that my reading and my playing are pretty equal. There's no rush. We will all hopefully be here for several more decades, years, whatever. So just know that this is going to take longer than you probably want, but it is worth it, and it's just something you're going to work at the rest of your life. It's just like drumming. There's never going to be a point where you finally get to the end and you've made it and you're as good as you're ever going to. It's a lifelong process. So back over here, this is really early transcribing for me. This is a little bit later. This is a Brian Blade groove. And I show you this one because it looks better than what I just showed you as far as, its format and its accuracy. But this page, these however many bars, it's probably like 64 bars, 32 bars, whatever it is. This literally took me probably 2.5 weeks to do. And then this was one of the earliest transcriptions I did in college, where it was a full transcription. It wasn't just a fill, because when I say start small, I'm saying start with a fill, start with 3 bars of groove, whatever. This entire page of groove took me 2.5 weeks, probably, maybe even a month. And it was painful because I wasn't great at reading, and it took me forever. And now something like this would take me maybe an hour, but probably not, because I'm faster at Finale. I'm faster hearing and writing it down. I've worked on the skills so that it comes really quick. But when I first did this, it took forever, weeks. So that was, kind of the middle of my transcribing career where I was starting to get a little bit more serious about, well, let me start taking bigger chunks, not just a fill here, a groove there, but let me take a whole section and transcribe that out. And now, something that's really current is, like I said, I have the great honor of now being featured on Drummer World, and this is one of the transcriptions that is on Drummer World, and this is a Chris Coleman drum solo, and this whole thing is, it's a lot of notes, it's really fast, and to me this looks much better. Obviously it's come a long way since, this does not look nearly as good as this. But again, it's been 5 or 6 years, and it's been intense doing it pretty much every day. And this took me probably 2.5 hours. And when I first started, it would have been impossible because I didn't know how to read music well enough. But even if I had known how to read music well enough, this probably would have taken me months. And because I love Chris's playing and I was really inspired by it, I sat down and in a couple of hours, 1, 2, or maybe 3 hours, I did this whole thing in one sitting because I just love his playing and wanted to do it, So all that to say, it takes a long time to get these skills together, but it is worth it. And now I want to walk you through a couple tools of the trade. So because the first tool I'm going to show you is I think the thing that has enabled me the most to get better at transcribing. And I think it's really important to use a program to help you. So this first tool that I use when I transcribe is a program called Transcribe. And it actually, the name of the app has this is a computer application, and it has an exclamation point in the title. So you can go to this website down here. You can go to that website and check their stuff out, but this program is incredible. And again, there's going to be a whole nother lesson on me walking you through this program because I think it's really important when you're transcribing to be able to loop what you're transcribing. If you're transcribing one bar of groove and you have to, you're playing it in iTunes and you have to start and stop it and then rewind a little bit and start and stop it and then rewind a little bit, you're wasting so much time stopping and starting and queuing it up to the right spot. That is so much wasted time that in today's world, you do not have to do that, right? So I'm sure there's a ton of apps you can do looping and all that stuff with, but Transcribe is incredible because as you can see right up at the top here, there's the 15, 25, 35, 50, 70, 100%. Those buttons, when you click those buttons, and again, there's going to be a whole lesson on this, so I'm not showing you because I want to get through all of these. When you click those buttons, it actually slows down the audio to, if you click 50%, it'll slow the audio 50% of its original speed while maintaining pitch. And that is super critical because, one, it does it on the fly. You don't have to bounce out a new track. It does it in real time. And being able to maintain pitch is so important because when you're trying to transcribe ghost notes or kick drums, and when it's 100%, the floor toms and kick drums are at one pitch, and then when you slow it down, they become another pitch. It gets really hard to distinguish what's a floor tom, what's a kick drum. Ghost notes now sound weird. So I think it's really important to, one, be able to loop while you are transcribing so you're not wasting time queuing up and starting and stopping. And then I also think that being able to slow down the audio. When I transcribed that Chris Coleman solo, those notes are so fast. Without being able to slow it down, there's no way I could guarantee accuracy, and it would take me a million years, So some people might view this as cheating, but I think that we live in, it's almost 2018 now as I'm recording this, and to not use this amazing technology, I think, to me, is a little silly. So that's the first tool, Transcribe. Any kind of program, but I really recommend Transcribe. And you can check out their website with that link below, find out more. The program, I think, is like $40. It is well worth it. I've gone through several OS updates and all of that stuff, and the program has always maintained, it works great. And it can also slow down video as well, which I'll get to in another lesson. So the second tool is Finale. Now, Finale is not required. Finale is a kind of complicated program. And again, it is a software that helps you, that computerizes the notation. So I learned this in college and got it in college, and I also transcribe drums professionally for a living. So it's important to me to have Finale because my handwriting's terrible, and it's really the only way to transcribe at a professional level. But I think even if you're not a professional, Finale can be really valuable because when you're transcribing and you're doing something like a Chris Coleman solo, you're going to have to probably erase stuff here and there. And I think that, if you have one bar of music and you get to the end and realize you've screwed up and you have to redo the whole measure, if you're handwriting things, it's just really painstaking to go back and erase that whole measure or mark it out and go to the next measure. For me, who is kind of OCD and has terrible handwriting, Finale is a huge way to make my transcriptions legible and to do it way more quickly. If I screw up, I just hit backspace and I put something else, and it's like it never happened. And again, since I'm doing it on a professional level, it helps there too. But Finale is worth checking out if you want to get serious about transcribing. But if you don't, I recommend getting some kind of staff paper. I have a Moleskine journal that is great. It has staff paper. It's hard to see here, but it has staff paper, and it has all the lines on it. And I keep this right by my practice drum set so that anytime I want to, I'm practicing and I have an idea, or, I think of I'm listening to a song and I hear a fill that I really like or whatever, I can just jot it down super quick, and then I keep this next to my practice drum set so I can always refer back to it. I can go back 4 years now and look at some of the fills that I was working on, look at, some of the concepts that I thought of right when I was practicing and jotted down in this. So I think it's a really great way. You don't have to get this particular notebook because it is a little bit smaller. It's hardcover, which I really like, but it is a little bit smaller. So for some of you that want to, really get into transcribing and transcribe full pieces of music or whatever, you probably want a little bit bigger of a book. But I really like this because it's really compact and it's really easy to just quickly jot stuff down and, take notes. Each, this side of the left side of the page is always blank. So if you have notes that you want to write, I really like this, and I think if you're trying to get into it, the $18, it'll literally last the rest of your life. I've had mine, like I said, for I think 5 years, and it's a cool way to track what I've done, and I really like it. So if you don't want to spend the money on Finale, you don't want to learn another computer program, get some kind of notebook to write in. And this is obviously Amazon. Most of you will recognize that all this information is from Amazon because that's how I buy everything. So if you are going to handwrite stuff, I think and if you're, charting stuff for church or for gigs or whatever, I think it's really important to have a way I read charts off my iPad. So I think it's really important to have a way to transfer handwritten charts, transcriptions, whatever, to digital. And taking a picture of it is not a good way. One, it's really hard to read. Two, if you ever print that out, it prints all the white. That is not a good way to do it. This app is free, and you can find it in the App Store. I'm not sure if it's on Android, but it definitely is on iOS, and it is amazing. This is what it looks like over here on the left. This is what it looks like in the App Store, and then over here on the right, this is what it looks like when you are essentially, it's amazing. You point your camera at the thing you want to scan in. So if you have a transcription you've handwritten, you point your camera at the transcription and it automatically finds it, automatically crops it, and then scans it in as if it were like a scanner. It's amazing. It's worth checking out. I'm not going to go into too much detail, but if you are the kind of, even if it's not for music, if you're the kind of person that writes down to-do lists by hand and then you want to be able to reference them on your computer or back them up to your computer or whatever, if you're in school right now and you write handwritten notes but want to be able to refer to them later on your computer, this is an amazing thing because it automatically crops stuff and looks way, way, way better. It looks like a real scanned document instead of just a picture taken with your phone that's hard to read and blurry and whatever. So Scannable is amazing. And then the last tool is a program called Download Helper. It is an extension you can get for Google Chrome and Firefox. I'm not sure if you can get it for Safari, but be ethical about how you use this, because what this allows you to do is off of YouTube and a lot of other sites, you can download videos to your hard drive. So disclaimer, I downloaded this. I've never gotten any viruses from it. I've never had any problems, but I don't know. Use extreme caution, and again, be ethical. Do not download songs and then, pirate them and sell them to your friend. I use this to download. Clients will hire me to do a transcription of a YouTube video. I will download that YouTube video, transcribe the part, and send them the PDF, but I don't, charge, I don't have them pay me to have access to the downloaded video, you know what I mean? So be ethical, but this is a great way, if you want to get something off of YouTube so you can transcribe it, this is a great tool to help you download that. Again, I won't go into too much detail about it, because you can probably figure it out yourself, and there's frequently asked questions, but it is an extension you can use in Google Chrome and Firefox. So that is where to start and some of the tools of the trade. Start small. Don't be discouraged. It took me so many years to be able to do what I do, and at first, like I said, I showed you those early transcriptions. They didn't look great, and they took weeks, months. So, start small. Grab one fill at a time, one groove at a time. Take your time. And then the tools of the trade, I went through all 5 of those. Again, they were Transcribe, Finale, some kind of journal or staff paper, the app Scannable, and then Download Helper. Those things will get you started right. And that's it for where to start. And now we're going to hop over to the next lesson, and I'll see you there.